Good morning and welcome aboard, everybody. It's your buddy Choppadong coming at you with another episode of Chop Talk, brought to you by the one, the only DFSArmy.com. All things DFS related, covered from tools to content to coaching to everything you could imagine. Really, the values in the Slack chat forums where our coaches and experts are bantering back and forth all day long with the members and helping them refine their process, refine their systems, maybe put them on some different plays, get them thinking along different lines, and of course, make sure they're remaining fundamentally sound all the time. So, if you're the type of player that's looking for a little bit of advice, a little bit of a point in the right direction, whether we get into the football season or round out the baseball season, I encourage you to go to the comments section and take a look at DFSArmy.com. Use coupon code CHOP, CHOP, and trigger that 10% off discount. Prices are going up soon. Get your price locked in today. It's grandfathered in. Your price won't go up once you lock in at this previous pricing. So I actually urge you to go and do that today. Now, what we're going to do is dive into the MLB slate, of course, today, and I'm going to come back later with a VIP video on the shorter slates for my guys inside the forum. I've got a couple of questions that have popped up, and we'll cover a little bit of that. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to rock and roll down through. I mean, you've seen me on Twitter at Choppadong, hopefully, but we're going to rock on down through the Chin Music article, and we're going to see where we came up with these numbers. This video will be replaced soon by the one you hear me talking about right now. Back to basics, we're looking at a lot of these teams that are on both lists. These are teams that are scoring a lot of runs, teams that are giving up a lot of runs. I encourage you to use these as tiebreakers. When you see a team that's in a good spot today, maybe the Yankees, they are scoring a lot of runs. I would encourage you to take them over somebody who's maybe not on this list because it's showing you that over the last 30 days, the Yankees offense has been humming. The Cubs are coming out of the doldrums again later in the season to capture that division, and it appears that the Cardinals are scoring runs along with them. So you're just going to be looking for these guys to be matching up against soft pitching because you can rely on that offense as a whole as somebody scoring runs. Conversely, you jump over here to the ERA side of things. Who's giving up the runs? The Royals, the Rangers, the Orioles, the Padres. These are all teams that are giving up runs that you can score on. So when you see a somewhat mediocre offense going into a team like this giving up a lot of runs, you can usually bank on the fact that they're going to score tonight. Now, we've seen a lot of instances where Detroit and the Mets and even Seattle last week really let us down in a few spots. They were in great spots, and that's going to happen. But over the course of the season, this is typically a good way to find the teams that are scoring and the teams that are allowing the runs to be scored against them. So use those numbers or those two charts wisely. In the pitching slates today, I broke down a little bit of who I like and why. I'll go through the research station and show you exactly how we found these guys. And then, of course, scroll down here past the big $100,000 winnings. That DFS Army has a track record, guys. MLB pitching to exploit. I'll show you how we sort this as part of our process when we start digging into finding these guys. Of course, they're just right there on the list. These are the pitchers that are in a position to not have such a great day. They're facing tough offenses that happen to be scoring runs too. And then we scroll down here, I ranked them today 3-star and 2-star offenses. And what I looked at was 3 categories. And I'm always looking for teams that check the boxes. Teams that, in the NFL, when I'm looking at a running back, does he catch passes? Does he get 20 touches a game? Is his Vegas spread bigger than 7 points, showing me game flow might be headed his direction where he's going to get to grind out the clock for us? Is he getting goal line work inside the 5-yard line? If he checks those boxes, kaplink, 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 he's in a great matchup, and I'm going to likely use the guy in quite a few of my lineups that I build. This is the same situation. We're going to throw up some boxes. I'm going to say, are they scoring? Are these offenses implied to score a lot of runs today? Are they facing bad pitching? And are they facing the dreaded double red, which is the pitcher that has trouble with both sides of the plate, gives a high batting average or a high WOBA to lefties and righties? If those 3 boxes get checked, he's a 3-star offense. If only 2 get checked, it's a 2-star offense. And then whatever, 1-star and beyond. What I'm looking at, and it's not all inclusive. There's going to be teams that score 8 runs out of nowhere tonight. But generally speaking, this is going to put you on the offenses in the best chance to succeed. And then our job is to dig into those offenses and find the hot bats, if any. New York has cooled off a good bit, but New York is in such a good spot, and the team is such a good offense from top to bottom that I would be looking at our VIP starting lineups page for ex-WOBA numbers and things to dig in and see who might be getting ready to break out a little bit of their shell. Of course, Chicago's already running hot, so those guys are all playable. St. Louis, Arenado and Story and those guys in Colorado, it's interesting today. I believe a lot of times in the first game fade. You can argue that it doesn't exist. You can argue that BVP exists and doesn't exist. You can argue that using small sample sizes is stupid. And you can argue that using large sample sizes goes back too far into April, and that's stupid. I mean, every single theory has bullet holes. But I like the little idea of the Colorado Rockies being out on a road trip of, 5, 6, 8 games and then coming home. And yes, they should theoretically know how to adjust to the altitude, but when the ball's coming at you at 92 with sink, it's it's a little hard to predict that it's not going to sink as much. You get under it a little bit because you're used to the ball breaking more. Now, that's a deep theory, but it's a GPP type theory. Colorado's in a great spot today, but it also might serve you well to hedge against that in a few lineups in case they come out flat. That's basically what you're trying to guard against is if they mishit a few balls and they don't score a lot of runs tonight, then you don't want to be on those expensive bats when that happens. Now, takes a game or two to adjust. Colorado's always fadeable in GPPs, but oftentimes the first game out of the chute is the one where you're going to really notice them being a little bit flat. But again, they got some guys running pretty hot tonight, so you can run them or fade them. Choice is yours. Pittsburgh, LA, and New York, New York. These are more of a GPP type situations down here towards the bottom. But these are all offenses that I'll be targeting tonight. So let's dive into exactly how we figured that out. We jump into the research station, and we're going to get the default sorting by DFSA grade for our starting pitchers when we click on that tab. And I'm going to do the same process for the VIPs later in the smaller slates too. It's just lather, rinse, repeat. And we're looking for the pitchers that are on the slate that are going to be the best today. So I'm going to actually sort them instead of by DFSA grade, by K percentage. I want the pitchers that are running the highest strikeouts to come to the top because when they face a team that's also striking out a lot, then what we've really got is a good matchup. And that puts Godley in a good position today. When I scroll over here to look at the prices, though, I immediately notice Charlie Morton in a big price gap between DraftKings and Fanduel, and I like that indicator as well. So when I see these guys, I'm looking for a combination of price tag, strikeout, K-score, the combined strikeout between them and the bats that they're facing, and then, of course, I'm looking for Vegas odds. And generally speaking, these guys at the top of the strikeout chain here are going to be the ones that you're looking at. They've got the most strikeout potential on the night. You're going to go over here and look for some of those top 4 or 5 pitchers to also be looking good in Vegas. And you see a 190 and then some 140. And you get down here a little bit, you see some other 200s, and that's a good sign, but they're going to be lower on the K-score model. Now, they better be cheap. If they're cheap enough, then we're going to but if we're looking at the more expensive, more predictable pitchers, the more consistent pitchers, I'm going to be looking at Trevor Bauer. I'm going to be looking at Morton, Syndergaard, those guys. And it shouldn't come as a big shock to you. That's one thing I will mention as a kind of a little tip today. Most people get too kooky with the pitching. Everybody wants the low-owned pitcher, the low-priced pitcher, the guy that's going to, really put up 60 points that only cost me $6,000 so I can afford some bats. And that's great if it makes sense. A lot of times it doesn't make sense. And if you're playing great big GPPs, 10,000, 20,000 people GPPs, you've got to take that gamble because the payout is huge. So you've got to take that gamble. But on the smaller tournaments, 100-man, 300-man, 500-man, even 1,000-man, you don't need to take that gamble. You need to set yourself up well with your pitcher. You would ideally like somebody a little bit cheaper that you can then afford to throw some bats in there along with, but you don't need to pump the pitcher. That's not often the way to go in the smaller contests because chalkier lineups win those smaller contests all the time. You don't need to take unnecessary risk. If you're going to take risk, you need to get paid to take that risk. I see guys in 3-man and 5-man leagues doing it all the time. I'm going to gamble with the pitcher and I'm going to run this goofy, New York Mets stack when they're facing some guy and hope you're a dumbass. Sorry. If you do that in cash games, you're just a dumbass. And you need our coaching more than anybody because you're just leaking money right and left, and then you wonder why you're redepositing all the time. You need to check in with us and get yourself right because we can fix that crap. Now, Trevor Bauer tops the list, but is he worth it at 11.5? His K score is only a 497, and I don't think that that's necessarily worth it. Minnesota's been a little bit hot lately, and the Vegas odds are there, but it's a little dicey for me when I can find a little bit better. I'm going to find a little bit better, in my opinion, in Charlie Morton for just under $10,000 on Fanduel. He's got that price gap on DK, and then on top of it, he's still got a minus 140 favorite, which isn't strong, but it is at least favored. And then he's got a 520 K score and a 94 rating in our DFSA grades. He's facing the San Francisco Giants in a pitcher's park out west. It's a nice little late night hammer if you like running those. And when that marine layer sets in out there, I'll be watching the forecast. When that marine layer sets in, that sinking cold, cool, humid air comes dropping down into that stadium. Balls don't get out of it very easily. And that's going to help a Charlie Morton keep the ball in the park. Now, Noah Syndergaard is okay for just a little bit less. He's got a little stronger Vegas rating at a minus 160, but he's got a good bit less 480 K score, and he's in Cincinnati. Well, no, maybe he's at home. Sorry, he's at home. He's in New York. So that's a good thing. If he was in Cincinnati, I was really going to be off of him. Now I will consider him a little bit more because I don't want to go take my pitchers out into bandboxes, there, Milwaukee, Arizona, places like that where balls fly out of the park, especially Coors Field, because it's just not a recipe for success. It increases the risk on the pitcher. Therefore, it starts taking him out of cash game considerations. Right now, Charlie Morton is still my dog. I do like Syndergaard actually a little bit. Godley would be another one to look at his $8,700 price tag. The thing is, Philly's in Arizona, and Arizona is one of those pitcher or the hitters parks that I don't like to really throw pitchers out in. I do like the 8,700 price tag. We suffer a little bit in Vegas. And the K score is a 500, which is great. But he's feels a little bit riskier than a Charlie Morton tonight. So for the 1,100 bucks, I might just go ahead and pay up for Morton. If I'm going to price down around that 8,700 mark, I'm going to go down even a little bit farther, all the way down in the ratings though, to Cole Hamels. I'm going to take on Kansas City. If you look at Kansas City, they do strike out. That's interesting to me because usually they don't. They do strike out against lefties. They tend to strike out a little bit more, so that's fine. We can pick on them a little bit. Kansas City also allows a lot of runs. They were on that chart of having a high team ERA, which means that we should have good run support. We know that Chicago is in a good hitting spot, and they've been tearing it up lately. They're one of the three-star offenses tonight. Why? Because the opposing pitcher, is it Junis? Is that who it is? Where's my Chicago? Well, I didn't look it up, I guess. But whoever that pitcher is a double red pitcher. He's giving up high WOBA to right and left-handed bats equally, which means Chicago already running hot. Chicago implied to score quite a few runs. Chicago also having some hot bats within that offense might be flipping that lineup over and over and over again, and we know Kansas City allows the runs. So that puts them in a very, very good spot tonight to target with your bats. A chalky spot, cash safe type of spot, but that's going to be one of the better ones. And if they score, 10, 12 runs tonight, it's going to win people GPPs. You're going to want access to that game. So rounding out the pitching, we can sort again by, I guess I should say I won't go below Lance Lynn. Where's old Lance Lynn? Buddy, where'd you go? 7,400. He's playable. He's got the big favorite coming out of Vegas. Chicago's not an offense that scares us too much. Lynn's been pitching better the past, say, month or so. So he's also in play. If you want to get into Coors, I do think that's probably one of the pitchers people are going to be using if they want to stack Coors bats. Sorting by ascending is where we get that number I showed you a screenshot in Chin Music. It brings all of these bad rated pitchers to the top. And from there, what we're going to wind up doing is we're going to go over here to the righties and the lefties section, and that's where we're going to find the double red. I'm going to sort that by descending now since I showed you who these pitchers were. Generally, they're going to stay in the top. They're going to shuffle the order a little bit, but these four are all on that list. And then you're going to see that versus righties, these are all the reds and pinks that we're going to be watching, and we're going to be looking for reds and pinks over here in about this section. We're going to get all the way down here to maybe Tropiano. Down here, you're going to get lefties. If you want to be real almost contrarian. Take lefties against Lance Lynn, take lefties against Arrieta, whatever. Arrieta handles right-handed bats pretty well, gives up lefties. So you can play one side of the fence or the other. I like the double red because then the lineup tends to flip over because the pitcher has trouble getting anybody out. So I'll go down here to Tropiano. I will also use Junis. I will also use Cologne, Covey, and Bailey. Those are the guys that I would consider double red today. You might throw in the 330 guys that are a little bit neutral in Musgrove and Gibson. Those would be guys that are a little bit pink over here, and so you might see some good offenses come out of them. If I scroll back over to Musgrove, that's Colorado. There you go, and Gibson, which is Cleveland. So you could put them on your radar too if you can find hot bats inside those offenses. Now to find the hot bats, we're going to use the trends tab, and we've already sorted this out. I sort by 350 most times because that's going to weed out some of the crap. And it's going, I'm not going to use a 350 guy, get too excited about him unless he's part of a stack. Like if I'm running Gregorius and Hicks and whatever else, yes, I would throw Stanton in there. Would I use Stanton as a one-off? Probably not, because he's not hitting a 400. He's not really even all that hot. Now he's heating up, and you can see that by the 328 and the 351. He's coming up a little bit off the last week, so that's a good sign. Maybe he's getting hot. What I'm looking for is I'm going to spend some time looking down this to see if I can find some good ratings. Chicago, 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 Seattle, Seattle. We're obviously on the right track with calling those the three-star offenses. New York doesn't have a lot of hot bats in it, but they're also the other three-star bat. I'm going to go through and I'm going to click on Seattle. And I'm going to look at who is the 350 and above WOBAs. And look at these, are close to 400 and over 400. These four guys are in play. You're not going to get a lot of at-bats out of Gamble and Vince, whatever. I can't even pronounce that name. But Cruz and Seager should be in your stacks if you're using Seattle's offense tonight. New York, same bit. Stanton and Gregorius. Stanton a little bit. Gregorius should be in your stack. He's running fairly hot right now against right-handed bats over the last week with a 428 WOBA. If you can find a couple of other bats to go with him, that would make a lot of sense. Chicago is where I'm going to be the more and more I look at the slate. They just have too many hot bats, all hitting over 400s, in some cases high 400s. Some of the guys getting at bats, look, could Javier Baez be any hotter? 50 at bats, a 590 WOBA? Come on. And that's even over the 2-week average. So he's sustained this for 2 weeks. He's running really, really hot right now. Rizzo, Schwarber, Zobrist, Contreras, Baez. If Lastea gets a start, I might throw him out there for cheap if I'm using a more expensive pitcher. But in general, these guys are not even the $4,000, $4,500 guys that you find in Cleveland and New York and whatnot. It's a fairly affordable stack as well that's in a great spot to perform tonight. If I go to St. Louis, I've got a few guys I can use here. Martinez, Jerko, maybe. Carpenter. Carpenter's a good one-off, always. Wong's a good cheap second baseman. 432 WOBA over the past 7 days. Now, he came off the DL. You might want to look back at the game logs and you might blah, 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 blah. O'Neill's another cheap one. But what you're going to typically look for is these guys to perform as a unit. If St. Louis is in a good spot to score 5, 6, 7, 8 runs tonight, then you've got yourself a pretty good unit that you can stack up and correlate those points. Jumping out into Coors Field with Colorado, Arenado, Story, Dahl, Gonzalez, Parra. If Walters and Hampson get any at-bats, Dahl's not going to get any at-bats either. These are the guys that you're looking at. You can even scroll over a little farther since it's Colorado and look for the ISOs. Arenado, Story, Cargo. These guys are hitting over 200 ISOs over 2 weeks. 500 in Trevor Story's case for the last week alone. Over 200 still for these guys. This is when you're going to be looking to hit the home runs. This is how you can find home runs using this tool. When I scroll down to Pittsburgh, their counterpart tonight, I'm going to find not as many bats. Freese, Diaz, Cervelli, Frazier are fine, but there's no Marte, there's no Polanco, there's no, Sean Rodriguez. Some of the guys that can get on real tears are not in here to complement this. So we're going to be interested to see if Pittsburgh does score a lot of runs off Freeland, or if Freeland has good numbers at home and pitches really, really well and would be a sneaky as hell tournament play. So all up to you. The thing I would tell you is I'm going to go back. I'm going to turn this off. We'll wrap up with a tip today. And the easy tip is using this Trends tab. I'm going to clear these off. And I'm going to show you. We'll pick on a couple of teams. Let's pick on the Yankees. And what I'm going to show you is these bats are running a little bit cold. I'm looking for a guy over 2 weeks. Neil Walker was a 368. Now he's a 0. He's cold. Ice cold. This is why you can use these small sample sizes to see the trends. See that Gregorius has come up. You can see that Aaron Hicks is cooling off. He was a 408 over 2 weeks, but he's only a 324 in the last 7 days. So you can use this tool to determine if guys are on the rise or on the fall. When they're still about, now if a guy is a 500 and then over 2 weeks and then over the 7 days he's a 400, I'll probably still likely play the guy if the team's in a good spot because he is still hitting 400. But he is coming down off the 500, and we know 500 WOBA would not be sustainable, so we're looking for him to cool off. But if he drops below that 350 mark, then yeah, I'm off him because he's dropped a little too far. I need to see him bounce and come back. Now, if he's got big 2-week numbers, it might not take much to come back. So this, again, is not a perfect system. But if you stay with this system day in and day out, you're going to quickly find that it's going to have the variance flow through it, and it can be a very good way at finding very good offenses that people don't really see and don't see coming, and you can sneak up on some people. And if you play some upside type contests, 100-man leagues, 300-man mini GPPs and things, you can really sneak up and bite some people and win some money. And that's obviously what we're trying to do. If I scroll into, say, Cleveland, and look again at these guys with their season numbers are pretty high. Their 2-week numbers are okay in some cases. Ramirez is running hot again. Lindor's sustaining himself, but Encarnacion's cooled right back off. And Yonder Alonso's cooled way off. These guys, Yonder not so much, but Encarnacion even at upper threes is a little bit overpriced. Now, you're going to find guys that are going to run these guys in their lineups today. And you're going to find guys that if Cleveland does score 10 runs, can they? Sure, we know they're a great offense. You're going to find guys that think that was an ultimate skill play. And I'm going to tell you, running Edward Encarnacion tonight is not a skill play. It's a donkey play. The guy is noticeably cooling off. He's not swinging the bat well right now. He's overpriced for his matchup. And if you want to run him and you want to get lucky, good for you. Keep doing that when you play me in your lineups because it's going to burn you far more often than it helps you. And I'll be happy to let you go take your victory lap and celebrate tonight because you're going to think it was skill and you're going to go back to whatever you saw that put you on Encarnacion that tonight, or I just run Cleveland when they face Kyle Gibson, or whatever the hell your logic is. I've got numbers showing you that was stupid. I'm not going to tell you those numbers because I want you to continue running subpar players out in subpar matchups for themselves, thinking that it's great. I want it to work for you one time, and then I want it to fail the next 10 times because I'm going to be right there on your ass picking up all the quarters you drop out of your pockets. That's part of this game. But you have to stick to your own system. This is my system. You have to stick to your own system to be able to do that. And you also have to be okay with guys getting lucky. Again, round ball, round bat. There's a lot of luck in this game. Bloops fall in. Take my softball games yesterday. Texas leaguers fall in. And they count as a hit just like that liner into the gap. It's just the game that we play. That's why we play with lower portions of our bankroll. If you want bankroll advice, you need to be a VIP. But we're helping people right and left manage their bankroll so that they don't ever redeposit again, or at the very least redeposit less than they used to. This is an enjoyable hobby. If this game that you play is, about what you would be spending if you went to a couple of games a year, bought some hot dogs and a couple of beers, then guess what? You're getting a ton of enjoyment out of it. We can't all be pros. We can't all be $100,000 winners. We can't all do that. But what we can do is make it a manageable hobby that's a ton of fun to play and watch the games and whatnot. And you do that by getting a little bit of coaching inside DFSArmy.com. So give me a like, give me a subscribe down there at the bottom of the channel. I really appreciate those. Those let me know that you're enjoying the content and that what I'm doing is actually teaching and is actually helping you. Come inside, become a VIP, and get even more coaching, even deeper coaching, a little bit more specified to your game, a little bit more one-on-one. Those are the types of things that I really love doing. So if that appeals to you, you need to be a VIP before prices go up. Hit that link in the bottom there, dfsarmy.com. Use code CHOP, save yourself 10%. Come inside. I'd love to talk to you. I will see you all tomorrow.